Hello my YouTube family, in this video I'll be taking you guys on a tour through this historical basilica called the Basilica of St. Josaphat. Enjoy. The basilica epitomizes the striving of early Polish immigrants to express their ethnic heritage, spiritual devotion, and patriotic pride by building impressive houses of worship. The first Poles came to Milwaukee in the 1840s, but their numbers did not become significant until after the Civil War. By the late 1800s, Polish immigrants were streaming into Milwaukee by the thousands, quickly becoming the second largest ethnic group in the nation's most German city. In 1866, 30 Polish families established St. Stanislaus Parish on Milwaukee's south side as the first urban Polish parish in the United States. St.Josaphat Parish was formed in 1888 as an offshoot of St. Stanislaus Parish and subsequently became the largest Polish parish in Wisconsin. Its first home was a modest building that was burned to the ground in 1889. The parish built a second church, but it was too small for its needs. Poles were the largest of the European immigrant groups who settled in Milwaukee after 1870, attracted by the promise of jobs and fleeing religious oppression and compulsory military service. Their population swelled in nearly 60,000 by 1900. Second only to the Germans, Poles were uniformly Catholic, and the church became the social as well as the spiritual center for their communities. There were 7 Polish Catholic churches in Milwaukee by 1900, each with its own parochial school. This burgeoning immigrant community desired to construct a church to meet the needs of its more than 12,000 parishioners in the late 19th century. Ground was broken in 1896 and the new building would be finished in 1901. Father Wilhelm Grutze, the pastor, had hired a German-born architect named Erchard Breyermeyer, to design what is in essence a smaller version of St. Peter's in Rome. The church would have the same cross-shaped floor plan and huge central dome that distinguish St. Peter's. When the plans were nearly complete, Grutze learned that the Chicago Post Office and Custom House needed to be raised, and he was able to purchase it for $20,000. The building was dismantled and the salvaged materials were loaded up on 500 railroad flat cars and brought up to Milwaukee. They were stockpiled on a vacant lot across the street. The present church is not what the Chicago Post Office looked like. Architect Breyermeyer changed his plans to include the salvaged materials, but his design remained faithful to the original model, St. Peter's. Ground was broken in 1896 and the church was finished in 1901. At the time of completion, the only building in the country with a larger dome was the United States Capitol. Cost overruns, but the parish in major debt. The archdiocese searched for an order of priests that would take over the administration and debt of the parish. In 1910, the conventual Franciscan friars took over administration of the parish and the debt was retired in 1925. With the debt gone, plans were made to finish the interior. The church wasn't exactly an empty shell when it opened. The stained glass windows were imported from Innsbruck, Austria. The main altar was here, but most of the building was a blank canvas, painted alabaster white. The parish hired a Roman artist, Conipo Raggi, in 1926, and his crew spent 2 years working on the interior. They painted the oil murals, finished the ornamental plasterwork, and painted the columns to resemble marble. In 1929, after the interior work was finished, the Franciscans petitioned Pope Pius VI to declare St.Josaphat Church a basilica, the first Polish-American church raised to his honor. In the Catholic Church, basilica status is reserved for the largest, most beautiful, and most historically important churches. In 1929, St.Josaphat Church was named the third basilica in the United States. Today, there are over 60 in the United States. It is as close as we get to a European cathedral. It is the largest church in Milwaukee with a seating capacity of over 1,000 people on the main floor. Hundreds more can be accommodated in the galleries. It is said to be the best known victim of anti-Catholic violence related to implementing the Union of Brest and has been declared a martyr and saint of the Catholic Church. His name was St. Josaphat. The Basilica of St. Josaphat, located in the Lincoln Village neighborhood of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, United States, in the Archdiocese of Milwaukee, is one of the 82 minor basilicas found in the United States. In its grandeur and opulence, it is an excellent example of the so-called Polish cathedral style of church architecture found in the Great Lakes region of North America. Modeled after St. Peter's Basilica in Rome, it features one of the largest copper domes in the world. It is listed on the National Register of Historic Places and is a designated Milwaukee landmark. The Basilica of St. Josaphat was dedicated to Josaphat Koncevic, a Ruthenian martyr and saint of the Roman Catholic Church, as well as the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church. The history. Poles began trickling into Milwaukee in the 1840s, but the flow increased after the Civil War until their numbers were next only to the German Americans. In 1866, St. Stanislaus Parish was founded. The first urban Polish parish in the United States, St. Stanislaus, branched off Josaphat's congregation in 1888. Josaphat's first church building burned in 1889, as I explained in the beginning of the video. They rebuilt, but in 1896, when the parish church proved to be too small, Pastor Wilhelm Gutza commissioned a prominent church architect of the late 19th and early 20th century, Erchard Breiermeyer. Like a number of the other Polish churches in so-called Polish cathedral style, such as St. Mary's of the Angels in Chicago or Immaculate Heart of Mary in Pittsburgh, the architectural plan for the new edifice were intentionally modeled on St. Peter's Basilica. As the design neared completion, Father Grutza learned that the U.S. Post Office and Customs House in Chicago was being razed. He purchased the 200,000 tons of salvage materials for $20,000 and had it delivered to Milwaukee on 500 railroad flat cars, where parishioners were waiting to begin construction. The basilica was formally dedicated in 1901 by Archbishop Francis Xavier Katzer, with 4,000 people in attendance. Once completed, it met the requirements of Milwaukee's growing Polish Catholic population by seating 2,400 members, and was the city's largest church. Artist Tadeusz Sukotricki painted the first painting in the church, Martyrdom of St. Josaphat, in 1904. Decoration on the interior was completed in 1928 by artists Konrad Schmidt and Gonipo Ragi. Detailed oil paintings depicting biblical scenes adorned the walls and inner dome. The ornamental plasterwork finished in gold leaf set the columns, and ornate stained glass covered the windows. In 1929, Pope Pius VI designated St.Josaphat Church as the third minor basilica in the United States, marking it as a place of pilgrimage, special devotion, and historical significance. An electrical fire in 1940 caused extensive smoke damage to the interior, and a lightning storm in 1947 dislodged several large blocks of stone from the base of the dome. The need for repairs could no longer be ignored. Structural maintenance and renovation of the murals began in earnest from 1948 through 1951. Strong winds in 1986 tore a sheet of copper from the dome and severe water damage occurred. Financial assistance and repairs was the impetus for partnerships with the Franciscan order, along with several prominent businessmen from the Polish community. This led to the establishment of the St. Josaphat Foundation in 1991 and allowed large-scale restoration work, again by Conrad Schmidt Studios, to begin. Construction. The original plans drawn by architect Erchard Breiermeyer called the brick construction when it was decided that salvage material from the demolished Chicago Federal Building was to be used. Erchard had to use reverse planning in order to incorporate stone as the primary building material. Each block was carefully measured and numbered for a best fit in the new design, and hardly any stone was recut or went to waste. A large field nearby was used for material storage and sorting as it came off the railroad flat cars. 6 large granite columns from the Federal Building, along with their carved stone capitals, were added to the plans. The original ornamental railings, lighting fixtures, and doors were also to be used. Before construction could begin, a broad hill standing 30 feet (9.1 meters) tall at its peak needed to be leveled down to its surrounding area. This monumental task was completed using nothing more than man and horsepower, which hauled the earth to a new location along the western shore of the Kinnickinnick River. The cornerstone was placed on July 4th, 1897. Unskilled parishioners did most of the work under Erchard's careful guidance and direction. Hired help from among the poor also contributed when limited church funds allowed. Since domestic Portland cement was of known quality at the time, German Dickerhoff cement was imported for use in the foundation, while old railroad ties served as reinforcement. Heavy steel rails were also used in the concrete footings for the 8 piers that supported the 214 feet, 65-meter dome. On July 21st, 1901, a high mass presided over by Archbishop Francis Xavier Katzer marked the formal completion and dedication of the basilica. Interior decoration. The first mural that was painted for this church was the Martyrdom of St. Josaphat in 1904 by the artist Zhukotinsky, and is found directly behind and above the altar. Most of the other murals found in the church were paintings of Gonipo Raggi. Conrad Schmidt Studios later restored the interior of the basilica to its 1926 decorative grandeur, originally executed by Conrad Schmidt Studios and Roman artist Professor Gonipo Raggi, and restored the basilica's stained glass windows imported from Austria in 1901. Tadeusz Sukotinski was born April 3rd, 1855, and passed away December 7th, 1912. Was a Polish count, professor, and painter. Early life. Born in what is today the region of Podolia in Ukraine, he was one of Europe's foremost painters and religious subjects, a pupil of Cesare Pilati in Warsaw and a student of Krakow Academy of Fine Arts with Jan Matejko. Zhukotinski studied since 1879 at the Academy of Fine Arts Munich in Germany, where he was recognized with the highest prize awarded by the Academy, a silver medal as well as two bronze medals. His career. At the urging of his mother, he donated his first work, a small picture of the Blessed Virgin, to a poor church in Milwaukee shortly after he arrived in America. Zhukotinski entered a church in Milwaukee and found his own Madonna in a place of honor. He opened a studio in Milwaukee at once and went on to create more than 100 paintings and murals for the churches around the United States, 5 of which hang above the altars in Mary of the Angels Chapel, with an additional 3 paintings in the Adoration Chapel. His works can be found in other areas of Wisconsin, where Sutostinsky painted the St. Francis of Assisi altar in the Maria Angelorum Chapel of the Franciscan Sisters of Perpetual Adoration at St. Rose of Viterbo Convent in La Crosse, Wisconsin. An oil on canvas painting located immediately above the altar in Mary of the Angels Chapel. It depicts St. Francis of Assisi, founder of the Franciscan order, showing Francis at prayer in the little chapel of Portiuncula, surrounded by visions of Jesus, Mary, and angelic host. Zhukotinski was said to walk out into the country to study scenery so his paintings would be in harmony with local nature. He also apparently relied heavily on prayer and always had a light burning in front of a statue of the Blessed Virgin, to whom he attributed his success. His beautiful murals and pictures adorn many Polish churches in Chicago and its vicinity. He came to Chicago in 1888 and settled there. Zhukotinski frescoes can be found in many of the ornate churches here built in the so-called Polish cathedral style. Perhaps most well known is his large painting in the sanctuary dome of St. Stanislaus Kostka Church, which depicts the resurrected Christ accompanied by the saints in heaven with a Latin inscription that read, "I am the resurrection and the life, Alleluia." And on the 3rd day he arose as he said, Hallelujah. He also painted the altar pieces in St. John Cantios and at the Basilica of St. Hyacinth, the lunettes in St. Hedwige, as well as the stations in Holy Cross Church. The Polish Museum of America in Chicago also possesses a collection of his original drawings donated by Dr. Charles H. Wacht. Zhukotinski's work can also be found in the state of Indiana, where his stations of the cross can be seen at St. Hedwige in South Bend, Indiana, as well as his frescoes in the Church of the Immaculate Conception of St. Mary of the Woods, Indiana. In 1901, Zhukotinski painted 14 oil paintings in St. Mary's Church in St. Benedict, Kansas. In the nave are 6 oil paintings on canvas 6 by 9 feet, depicting scenes in the life of Mary, patroness of the church. In the transept are 4 round paintings on canvas 6 feet in diameter of the 4 major prophets. In the apse above the high altar are 3 oil paintings directly on the plaster wall depicting faith, hope, and love. Surrounding the high altar is an oil painting on canvas 6 by 9 feet of the Assumption of Mary into heaven. The artist's signature is on the paintings to the left of the main altar. St. Mary's was named to the National Register of Historic Places in 1980. Tadeusz Zhukotinski died in 1912. His legacy. Zhukotinski schooled the artist's sister Mary Stanisia, training her in such field of art as religious and landscape paintings and sculpture. who later continued her studies at the Chicago Art Institute after his death. In 1920, Sister Stanizia, a teacher at the Academy of Our Lady, was commissioned to restore some of the precious frescoes of Zhutosinski at St. Stanislaus Koska, St. Hansinth Basilica, and Holy Cross churches in Chicago. So that's going to be all for today. Thank you all for tuning in and watching this video to the end. I'll see you all in the next one. According to tradition, the ninth chorus of angels are angels, archangels, principalities, powers, virtues, dominations, thrones, cherubim, never heard that word, seraphim, the prophets. 8 roundels depict Old Testament prophets who predicted the coming of the Messiah. The saints. 8 lunettes containing paintings of evangelists, apostles, and doctors of the church complete the rotunda, key to the dome. Alright, my YouTube family, that's all for today. Make sure to please like, comment, and subscribe. Stay tuned for more.